This little spud, while small, is a big part of Irish history, and quite possibly a part of your history as well. While not native to Ireland, potatoes became a staple for Irish families when they were first brought here from the New World. So popular was the potato that by the 1800s, more than 3 million Irish peasants subsisted solely on the vegetable. But that quickly changed when a potato blight destroyed the Irish potato crop almost overnight, leading to a famine that forced over 1 million people to leave their homeland and immigrate to the New World. John Spink, a crop researcher, says it's still very important to control the very quick-moving blight.
Historically, potatoes are obviously very important in Ireland, and there's been a potato breeding programme here for over 50 years now. It's produced 41 new varieties of potatoes. In Ireland, blight, when did it come in? 1847, I think, was about the peak of the Irish famine, which was caused by blight. It's obviously endemic in the country now. It's a wet weather disease. Repeated warm, humid days give you very high levels of disease pressure. So Ireland is a climate ideally suited to blight.
In addition to potatoes, Ireland exports cheese and beef all across the European Union. But it's their barley crop that many Americans have a taste for.
You can't make good Irish or Scotch whiskey without barley, which is Ireland's main cereal crop. They raise over 1.2 tons every year, much of it going to make this fiery brew.
When you smell that, when you taste it, you might find that it's slightly sweeter, slightly more perfumed than the previous two. That's because of the ingredients that are used in the US to make it.
And while barley is Ireland's biggest grain crop, at Waterfall Farms, Trevor Martin says vegetables are a big business too.
Initially, my mum and dad came here about 35 years ago. Dad came from a dairy farming background, came here with a few dry cattle, started growing vegetables, primarily lettuce at the start, and started supplying Dunn stores, which is one of the multiples in Ireland. I suppose it grew from there, and we were there for about 22 or 23 years, supplying a whole range of vegetables grown on the farm here and on rented land, washed and packaged and delivered to the door Dunn's 5 days a week, 6 days a week.
Something Oklahoma farmer Jessica Wilcox says is quite different than in the Sooner State.
Ours is so much different. You can't even compare it. I mean, much different. Much more intensive. They're much more intensive here. I mean, our greens and spinach, we grow commercial. We have 25 acres. You can't even begin to manage it the same way.
So what's the difference?
Scale. And the attitude here in Europe is much different than the attitude in America still on vegetables.
And for Waterfall Farms, that means not only growing the vegetables, but processing them too.
My mum has a great interest in cooking, and we all have an interest in the outdoors and in growing, and we love dealing with people, so we just sort of felt our way into the market, and thank God we're still here and we're busy. We firmly believe that small is beautiful. We don't really want to get to a stage where we lose control of what we're doing.
Now, agriculture in Ireland has a unique advantage thanks to their rather wet weather patterns. Because grass grows so well, it makes feeding feed to cattle almost obsolete. Dairy farmer Tim O'Leary.
I have a rule of thumb for feeding cows, and if grass is a $1, silage is $2 for the same feeding, and meal is $5. So they get no meal, and they get silage when we have to, and grass all the time. 10 months grass.
Sounds like good business sense to me. Now, the Oklahoma Department of Ag's Blaine Arthur says Irish dairy farming differs from Oklahoma dairy production in a couple of different ways.
For the majority of the areas in Oklahoma, having cows out on grass and just grass for 10 months out of the year is not going to be a feasible option for our dairy producers. Another big thing here in Ireland, from what we've been told by Mr. O'Leary, their focus isn't so much on how much milk that they're producing per cow per day. Also a lot different size and operations here in Ireland. A lot of our Oklahoma producers have grown in size because that was the only efficient way for them to run their operations and to support their family.
Strict milk quotas in Ireland limit the amount of milk each farm can produce, and that limits the size of the operation.
The gentleman here, Mr. O'Leary, just has about 100 cows, and majority of our operations in Oklahoma would not exist solely on just a 100-cow dairy operation.
Sean Power, who raises beef cattle, says the size of his operation doesn't matter as much as keeping it in the family.
It's been in the family for 3 generations. My grandfather started the farm here, it was then handed on to my father, and now it's on to me. And hopefully the next generation will follow on and they'll take it on. It's a family-run farm, it's roughly 250 acres. We do mostly beef cattle, some sheep and horses.
And Oklahoma's Kurt Murray says that due to the weather, the work that goes into taking care of the animals is much more than we do in Oklahoma.
Just because the environment is so different, they have to do it so different here, where they put them up in barns through the winter to protect the pastures from the wet soils and the wet ground in the winter. You know, it's very labor intensive over here as far as feeding them through the winter and then through the summer, putting them into the different paddocks. In Oklahoma, we're not near as labor intensive beef cattle wise as they are here in Ireland.
So while wet weather might be hard on Ireland's potato crop, with all the green grass, it's the envy of every Oklahoman visiting there.
But basically in Ireland, the most important crops are spring barley and winter wheat, okay?